Hey again, Mini Charge here, and today I'm going to discuss the role and build of the balanced support class in Tom Clancy's The Division. Firstly, what is a balanced support? Well, to sum it up simply, a balanced support focuses on supporting their team through skills and abilities. While a balanced support's damage is not the highest of the group, they can still pump out a decent amount with the proper gear and weapons. Balanced supports will spend most of their time healing the main damage dealers, pulsing enemies with an extremely powerful debuff, utilizing CC abilities, scanning the area for potential threats, as well as dealing damage when needed on high priority targets. Now that we know the basic idea of what a balanced support is, let's take a look at the recommended abilities and talents that complement this highly diverse and pivotal role. First, let's take a look at abilities. Balanced supports have a large amount of skill power, especially once properly geared with a full 4-piece Tactician set. This allows this role to use the most powerful and beefed up versions of any ability, meaning stronger buffs, debuffs, damage, and utility. As of version 1.1, there are only a few abilities that really stand out for balanced supports in terms of running challenging missions or incursions. This will surely change with better and more in-depth content in the future, but as for the current state of the game, the following should be your go-to abilities. First, let's take a look at Pulse Tactical Scanner. This is potentially the most important ability in the game for the balanced support. Tactical Scanner scans the area around the player, debuffing enemy targets it hits. While the debuff is active, attacks against the enemy have a higher percentage critical hit chance, as well as increases the critical hit damage of the player crits. The higher the skill power, the more powerful your debuff, so it's important to have at least a minimum of 24,000 skill power to hit the cap of 40% critical hit chance and 100% critical damage. Next, we'll take a look at First Aid Overdose, your main and the only real heal. Overdose is able to not just heal, but can also overheal yourself and other players, adding a temporary shield that can soak up a ton of damage. Try not to use this on yourself by double tapping the ability button unless the situation is dire, and always shoot it to the ground, that way players can run in and out of it and also get healed. Next, we'll look at the Seeker Mine Gas Charge. The Gas Charge is a great tool for crowd control, as well as for AI manipulation. This little guy will follow you around if no enemies are nearby, as well as seek out multiple enemy targets as soon as it detects an enemy within its range. Once the gas charge reaches an enemy, it releases a cloud of gas which stuns the enemy, leaving them vulnerable to attack for multiple seconds, making it a great ability for controlling hard-to-kill mobs like rushers. Next, we'll look at Smart Cover Recharger. This ability is amazing. However, due to the fact that it requires cover, it's also very situational to be effective. Recharger gives allies that use the reinforced cover with around 65% damage resistance and up to 50% increased damage. That's like having Survivor Link and Tactical Link active at the same time. Easily the most overpowered ability, underused, and worst balanced ability in the game from what I've seen. Finally, we'll look at the signature skill Survivor Link. This is the oh shit button. Survivor Link increases the damage resistance and movement speed of the support and his nearby allies for a short duration. This allows you and your allies to survive even the most intense shootouts, allowing time to deal damage as well as giving the mobility needed to reposition or escape, turning a potentially losing encounter into a victory. Now that we've looked at our abilities, let's take a look at our talents. Bringing the right talents is important. For a PvE balanced support, there are not too many options that are currently viable, so picking the right talent shouldn't be too difficult. What we're going to be looking at for talents will be all in the medical tier, as it holds the best support talents in the game so far. First, we'll look at Triage. Triage is probably the most important talent for balanced supports or any skill power based character due to the cooldown reduction it gives. Every single time you heal a player, you reduce the cooldown of your abilities by 15%. This means that if you have your allies dancing in and out of your overdose, your cooldowns will rapidly decrease, allowing you to use more abilities more often. Secondly, we'll be looking at Battle Buddy. This talent is huge. It may not seem like much, but getting a player up in a sticky situation can mean the life or death of the encounter on its own, but tack on an additional 50% damage reduction and you'll have a damn good chance at turning a bad situation around. Third, we'll look at Critical Save. Another key player in survivability, Critical Save stacks the damage reduction by 40% when using a medkit. This allows for some sick clutch plays, especially when situations look the worst. Finally, Combat Medic. Combat Medic is a fantastic talent. What happens is every time you use a medkit near an ally, as long as they're within 20 meters, they will be healed for 40% of their health. There will be so many situations where your heal is on cooldown, or what simply would be faster to pop a medkit to heal or to reach the entire group or single wounded straggler. Use this judiciously, however, and leave your medkits for oh shit situations for either yourself or others. Alright, so we set our abilities and assigned our talents. Now it's time to look into the gear requirements of the balanced support, and what you'll be looking for in the terms of stats, weapons, and set bonuses to make yourself the best you can be. First, let's take a look at what stats should be your priority. First, we're going to take a look at skill power. Your skill power comes from your electronic stats. You'll want to have a minimum of 1900, but you'll want a max of 2063 once you have the Warlord assault rifle. Once you have the 4-piece Tactician set bonus, you'll easily cap out your skill powers, giving all your abilities maximum strength. Next, we'll look at armor. Make sure your armor is capped out at 65%. This should be very easy to cap out with higher level gear such as 2 or 3 240 pieces with good rolls, as they can nearly max out your armor on their own. Next is stamina. As a balanced support, we need the extra survivability as our team will be counting on us, so you'll want to have at least 2000 stamina to give us the tankiness that we're going to require. Next is protection from elites. Now that this is no longer bugged, protection from elites is extremely useful in mitigation against any yellow or elite named mobs. This makes challenging mode much easier overall, however it's not enough to protect you from the almighty headshot. Next is firearms. Once your stamina and skill power at their maxes, armor is capped, and you're rocking a proper amount of protection from elites, you can try to get your firearms as high as possible, but never at the expense of your other main stats. I would recommend aiming for the basic 2063 for your Warlord bonus, then going for the 2579 later, after your other stats are in a great place. Then enemy armor damage. Enemy armor damage is by far the balanced support's highest damage output. While it may not sound attractive, once you understand this stat, you see its true power. Armor damage is essentially true damage. Each shot deals an additional percentage of damage to the enemy flat. This means whether it's a purple or elite mob or just a regular red dude, it will always deal true additional percent damage to that enemy based off of your enemy armor damage percent. And finally, damage to elites. Damage to elites, another great stat that deals additional percent damage. However, this one is limited to elite and named enemies. This means that this bonus will not be applied to purple or normal mobs, so it's less important for our kit. Alright, so now that we know what our stats are and our priority order for obtaining them, let's take a look at our weapons. Truly the best weapon in the game so far for the balanced support is the Warlord. The Warlord is an assault rifle that drops off of the challenging incursion Falcon Lost. There are really no cons to this weapon, but there are a ton of pros. First, it has high damage, it has high accuracy, it has decent stability which can be modded into great stability, and above all it has amazing talents. It has capable, which using a skill improves the handling of your weapon by 13.5 seconds. That's insane. This essentially means that you'll have constant improved stability that will make this weapon nearly 100% accurate. Then you have Ferocious, which while using this weapon, your damage against elites and named enemies is increased by 14%. That's a lot of extra damage. And finally, it has Unforgiving. Missing health segments increase your damage. 1 missing segment is 10%, and 2 missing segments is 23.5%. This essentially means that in tight situations when your health is low, you'll deal extra damage. This is nice for finishing off enemies in a pinch and just giving yourself that one last shot at pulling yourself out of a bad situation. As I said, the cons are none. Literally none. It's a great weapon that is made literally for this build. You can't go wrong as a balanced support with the Warlord, and you all should aim to obtain it. For your secondary, you're a little more flexible as there isn't really a great named marksman rifle at this time that would fit the support role. Instead, you want to be looking for talents such as the following when you're choosing your marksman rifle. Ferocious. Damage against elite and named enemies is increased by X%. Percentile damage is always nice, so this is a great one to pick up. Cool-headed. Performing a headshot reduces all skill cooldowns by 5%. While this does not affect your signature skill, it is nice to help drop your cooldowns, especially when you're under-geared. Balanced. Currently in 1.1, this talent is completely broken and most likely the most powerful talent in the game by far. Whenever you're firing with this weapon, it reaches max accuracy faster while you're aiming down sight. This allows you to essentially rapid fire your marksman rifle with low to minimal recoil and accuracy negatives. Brutal. Headshot damage is increased by X% when using this weapon. Another great percentage damage increase, especially when critting. And finally, let's take a look at our gear and gear sets. This should be a great guide towards giving a starting point and where to begin, and from there you'll be able to mix and match drops towards the fully min-maxed build. First off, the most important gear set for the balanced support is the Tactician's Authority set. This set is built specifically for skill power characters, and it's a 4-piece set bonus alone makes it 100% worth the effort in obtaining it. The set bonuses are as follows. For 2 pieces, it gives you plus 4,000 skill power. For 3 pieces, it gives you plus 20% skill haste. And finally, your 4-piece set is Tactician's Authority. Every 60,000 damage your group deals adds 1% skill power to you for a maximum bonus of 100%. This bonus is then reduced by 1% for every second the group is not dealing damage. This is why the Tactician set is so amazing. It allows skill-based players to fully hit the caps on skill power for their abilities without having to make major investments or sacrifices into electronics and skill power gear. This lets us build more damage and tankiness, allowing for supports to be more well-rounded characters capable of doing everything well. Secondly, for your 2 set bonus, you should be aiming for the 2-piece Strikers set. The 2-piece set gives you a set bonus of plus 20% enemy armor damage, giving you 20% additional damage to all enemies. The big thing with gearing, obviously, is getting the proper gear that will upgrade your stats without downgrading another stat too low, etc. You have to balance that stuff. My suggestion is to keep every piece of gear that drops for your sets in your stash. You'll never know if an upgrade drops, as it may only be an upgrade after switching your gear around, changing out the pieces and recalibrating your gear, etc. So be sure to always keep track of your items and how they will affect your stats. So there you have it. Following these guidelines, you'll be on the road in no time to building up your own extremely powerful balanced support, able to dominate in almost any situation. I hope you enjoyed this guide and found it useful and the video entertaining. If you have any feedback, comments, or questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you want to talk about your gear build or anything like that, I'd love to hear how you're building differently. Maybe you could even change my mind on a thing or two. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found this video useful. I'm Mini Charge, signing off. Stay frosty, everyone.